Out of every stadium in the United States, FIFA chose this one. Not Los Angeles, not Dallas, not Atlanta, not one of the futuristic stadiums that dominate headlines and social media. This one, a stadium sitting quietly in East Rutherford, New Jersey, just a few miles away from Manhattan. Before we continue, I want to tell you about the mission behind this series. Right now, we're on a journey across North America, flying above every World Cup stadium, exploring the architecture, the engineering, the stories hidden inside these incredible places. But this journey doesn't end with the World Cup. Our goal is to keep discovering amazing architecture, cities, and engineering projects from above, long after the final whistle. And to make that happen, we're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the World Cup ends. So if you enjoy seeing the world from a different perspective, and you want more aerial stories from cities, landmarks, and architectural wonders around the globe, subscribe and join us. In 2026, it will host the biggest match in world football, the FIFA World Cup final. At first glance, that decision feels surprising, because when most people imagine the World Cup final, they imagine something dramatic, something iconic, a stadium with a futuristic roof, a stadium that looks like it belongs in the future. MetLife Stadium doesn't try to do any of that. In fact, one of the most interesting things about this stadium is how ordinary it appears, especially from the sky. No giant moving roof, no spectacular glass shell, no architecture screaming for attention. And yet, out of every stadium in America, this is where the World Cup will end. So what did FIFA see? What makes this place so important? To answer that question, we need to go back almost 20 years, back to a time when this stadium didn't exist, back to a landscape that looked completely different. And surprisingly, the story doesn't begin with football, it begins with water. Before MetLife Stadium existed, there was another challenge, a challenge that most stadium architects never have to face. This stadium wasn't being designed for one team, it was being designed for two, the New York Giants and the New York Jets. Two rivals, two identities, two completely different brands, sharing the same building. Imagine being the architect responsible for that project. How do you design a home for two teams that compete against each other? How do you make both sides feel represented, without making either side feel ignored? The solution was surprisingly clever. Instead of designing a stadium with a strong personality, the architects created something more flexible, something that could change its personality. During Giants games, the stadium becomes blue. During Jets games, it becomes green. Lighting systems, interior branding, everything can transform. The building acts almost like a blank canvas, and that idea shaped the architecture itself. The exterior was intentionally restrained, simple lines, metal louvers, glass, neutral materials, no dramatic forms, no extravagant gestures. The goal wasn't to create a monument. The goal was to create a stadium that could belong to two different worlds. And in a strange way, that decision may have helped it age better than many of its competitors. Because 15 years later, it still feels relevant, still functional, still capable of hosting the biggest events on Earth. But building a stadium for two teams wasn't the hardest challenge. The hardest challenge was building it here. Today, the Meadowlands sports complex feels permanent. But for most of its history, this landscape was anything but stable. Long before stadiums appeared here, the Meadowlands were wetlands, marshes, water channels, soft ground. And that's where the real story begins, because building one of the largest stadiums in America on terrain like this is not a simple task. The challenge wasn't designing the stadium. The challenge was convincing the ground beneath it to support the stadium. Engineers had to deal with weak soil conditions. The solution came from below. Thousands of deep foundation piles driven into the ground to transfer the weight of the structure into more stable layers beneath the surface. And there was another complication. MetLife Stadium wasn't being built in isolation. The previous stadium was still operating nearby. Construction began in 2007. The stadium officially opened in 2010. 3 years of construction, more than $1.5 billion invested, and one enormous challenge solved. But even after opening, the story wasn't finished, because another transformation was still waiting. By the time MetLife Stadium opened in 2010, it was already one of the largest and most advanced stadiums in North America. More than 80,000 seats, over 200 luxury suites, home to 2 NFL franchises, host of concerts, international events, and eventually, a Super Bowl. For most stadiums that would be enough, but not for the FIFA World Cup. Because FIFA doesn't simply arrive at a stadium and start playing matches. The requirements are different. The dimensions are different. the expectations are different, and in some cases, entire sections of a stadium need to change. That is exactly what happened here. When FIFA selected MetLife Stadium as the venue for the 2026 World Cup final, a new phase of the stadium's story began. Not a reconstruction, a transformation. The first challenge was the field itself. Most of the year, MetLife Stadium uses an artificial playing surface designed for American football, but FIFA requires natural grass. Not optional, required. And that sounds simple until you remember what sits beneath this stadium. Concrete, infrastructure, drainage systems designed for a completely different sport. Suddenly, installing grass becomes an engineering project, not a landscaping project. Years before the tournament, researchers, agronomists, and engineers began testing solutions. Different grass systems, different growing methods, different drainage strategies. Everything had to perform under the pressure of the biggest sporting event on Earth. Then came the field dimensions. American football and international football do not use the same playing area. FIFA requires more space, more width, more clearance around the edges, and that meant parts of the stadium itself had to move. Corners were modified. Sections of seating were removed. Approximately 1,740 seats disappeared. The goal was simple: make the stadium feel like it had always been designed for football, even though it wasn't. And the changes didn't stop there. New technology arrived. Enhanced media facilities, improved broadcast capabilities. Every adjustment serving the same purpose: preparing the stadium for a single night, the World Cup final. And when you look at the project this way, something becomes clear. FIFA didn't choose a finished stadium. It chose a stadium becoming whatever the moment required. And that ability may be one of the most important reasons this stadium was selected in the first place. Because when the final arrives, the entire world will be watching. And that's what makes this stadium so interesting. Not because it's the most futuristic or the most expensive, but because it does exactly what FIFA needs: capacity, infrastructure, accessibility, flexibility, everything required to host the biggest match in world football. In 2007, this stadium existed only on paper. 3 years later, it opened, built above difficult ground, designed for two rival teams, and transformed once again to meet the demands of the FIFA World Cup in 2026. More than 80,000 fans will gather here for the biggest match in football. But behind that moment lies a story of engineering, architecture, and adaptation, a story hidden beneath every seat and every structure you see from above. If you enjoy discovering the stories behind remarkable places like this, join us. Our goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers before the World Cup ends and continue exploring incredible architecture and engineering projects from above long after the tournament is over. Our next destination is already waiting. Until then, keep looking up.